It's $1 per barrel. It's been down. It's going down. There's fears about China slowing their economy down and all that. So it's down there. Exchange rate official 435, still 435. This is the CBN exchange rate. So the unofficial, the black market rate is about 700. If I was planning, I would use the black market rate, not the CBN rate. The black market rate is more representative of demand and supply. Debt is still 29 trillion. That's our debt capitalization. In terms of the stock market, I think we're up, give or take, about 16% year to date in Nigerian stock market. Inflation is still 19.64. That's the last print that we got. It went up higher from the last time that we recorded. Food inflation about 22. So lots happening there. Interest rates 14%. We're quoting what's called a monetary policy rate. This is the rate that the central bank will discount or will lend money to the banks. So all banks will lend from 14% plus. So still high there. Reserves are still about $38 billion. This is the reserves kept in the central bank that the central bank uses to pay imports, defend the naira, and of course manage inflation in Nigeria, right? And of course GDP growth 3.54 currently is up from 3.11. So yeah, let's see. This is just our numbers that we have. We do this like on the Mondays, but other days we just go straight to the headlines, which we're going to do today. So, guys, again, we've got three stories. I'm going to link all together for you. So, three stories. Let's start from the first one from the Punch. And you see the thing with Nigerian papers, right? When you read the headline, it gives you a story. But when you read the body, you get another story. So, you've got to make sure you read the body. This from Punch is saying the federal government loses 13 million barrels of crude oil. It's worth about 603 billion. This is as at 2022. So if you read the story, it's essentially saying the Nigerian upstream and downstream petroleum regulatory commission. This is a new commission that has been created when the petroleum industry bill was passed. So this is like a new regulatory commission. It replaces, I think, the DPI, all that kind of stuff. So they are basically giving their report and they're saying Nigeria has lost about 13 million barrels of oil, about 603 billion between January and August of 2022. So they estimate the barrels lost, they give you the breakdown and all that, and also they estimate the prices. So they're calculating, of course, price and volume to get that figure that Nigeria has lost. It's based off, like, again, crude oil theft and crude oil shorting. So sometimes those two things overlap. We don't know if oil is stolen or if it's just that the pipes didn't pump oil because they will be stolen. So we're losing on both ends, but we're not really sure how that breakdown is. So that's the headline story. Nigeria has lost about maybe that amount, 604 billion. But when you read the story, you start to see some very interesting comments. So this guy we're talking about the National Public Relations Officer of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria. His name is Chief Ukadike Chinedu. So he's essentially saying that there are really inconsistencies in the oil theft numbers that Nigeria is quoting. So he's saying those numbers, we really can't believe them, or we can't really verify that those numbers are real. Why is he saying that? And I'm quoting him here. There is no accurate gauge to measure the volumes of crude oil being stolen in the country because Nigeria does not have standard measuring system. End of quote. I've heard this over and over. When I had the spaces as regards oil theft, lots of industry players in that sector said Nigeria does not know how much oil is being pumped up into those ships that are sailing to lift oil. And what I understood from those spaces is that the real oil theft happens at the organized, formal loading depots. So at that really organized place, the ships come in and they're to load 2 million, they move 2.5. And everyone knows they're moving 2.5, but to move 2 million. So Nigeria doesn't really record or have a gauge of what's going on. I find that unbelievable, right? If this was the first time I heard this, I wouldn't believe it, but I've heard it so many times. And you have this guy say it that as of 2022, Nigeria does not have accurate gauge to measure the volumes of crude oil being stolen because we don't have standard measuring system. It's unbelievable. So again, when I always see these stories, I go back to decision making at the very, very top in Nigeria. Who is making the decisions in Nigeria? How can this be happening? This has been happening from, I believe, 1999 and before 1999. It's happened under the PDP, it's happened under the APC, it's happened under Obasanjo, Yaradua, Goodluck, now Buhari. Mr. Buhari says fighting corruption. This is an easy fix. Let's know how much crude oil is being pumped out. Let's know officially. Not let's have an idea, right? I mean, if this is not true, then say it's not true. But why would he say this on and be quoted if it isn't true? So again, shocking story. It's hard to be shocked in Nigeria, but shocking that Nigeria does not know how much crude oil is being stolen because, quote unquote, Nigeria does not have standard measuring equipment. So that's the first story. I'm going to link all three stories for you guys to get to the final story and then give analysis. The second big story here is from the cable. And this is the Central Bank of Nigeria now giving their own talk. And they are essentially saying we injected 7.6 billion into the forex market in 5 months to stabilize the naira. So the Central Bank of Nigeria says it injected 7.6 billion. This was from when? This is as at May 2022, right? So this is from January. So they do a breakdown of how much they injected from January all the way till May. So just to give you guys a background, the central bank manages the exchange rate of Nigeria, and it does it in two ways. It can devalue the naira, or it can defend the naira. When you defend, the current CBN rate now is about 435, like we said at the very top. But the black market rate is about 700. So CBN will say any request that we fund, we will give you those funds at 435. That's CBN defending that exchange rate that they have set themselves. The 435 is not set by the market, it's set by CBN. So CBN is saying if you want to travel abroad, we will give you dollars at 435 because we are selling it to you. So they are defending that peg that they've done. The market is saying we'll sell to you at 700. So for the central bank to give you at 435, that means it's got to spend from its foreign reserve. That's what they're talking about, this 7.6 billion. So you want to ask yourself, right? There are two options. CBN can either allow the naira to devalue to float, or can do a managed float. It can say maybe we'll go to 600 or 550 or whatever. But the more it gives you dollars from the central bank at that 435, the more that 7.6 billion keeps on adding up. So you want to ask yourself, is this the best use of 7.6 billion? If Nigeria allowed the naira to go to say 600, and we took this extra billion and we paid ASU or we built a railway, would it be a better use of the money? We have to ask. I understand why CBN is spending 7.6 billion because it wants to reduce imported inflation. So if CBN says we're going to float the naira, what it will happen is that any goods that you import into Nigeria will be more expensive because you're going to import that inflation. But when you keep the value of the naira at 435, you are subsidizing imports. And when you subsidize imports, you are killing the local SMEs. So it's you have to choose. Economics doesn't give you an answer, it gives you choices. You either defend the naira at 435, but you spend 7.6 billion, or you devalue the naira, you don't spend 7.6 billion, but your currency goes to about 700, then your imports become more expensive. So the CBN is saying it's going to take a strong naira and will subsidize imports rather than devalue the naira. You can't say they are right or wrong. We can only say what they are doing. If you are there, you would have to also take a decision. But again, we have to ask the question: is this the best use of 7.6 billion? And this goes on. It's not like this is like a one-time thing. No. CBN is always defending the naira, and they're going to keep on doing it, right? The way the same thing the US does, if the US wants to defend the dollar, they will buy or sell currency. But the US can print and buy and sell. CBN cannot print dollars, right? So they have to earn that dollars, then they have to defend. And we heard at the top of the news, this podcast, we heard, listen, the dollar, the foreign exchange reserves about 38 billion. So we would have had 38 plus 7 billion, but we've taken out 7 to defend the naira. So if we had 38.7, what's that? What's my math? 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, right? So 44 billion. We should have had 44 billion that we didn't have. But if we have 44, dollar would be 700. So you choose. But remember, guys, the naira that you see, the 435, you are subsidizing imports and you are killing the local market, the local SMEs. That's what's essentially happening. So that's the second story. The first story was the loss of crude oil. The second story was the FX defense. The last story now, to bring it all in, is that the federal government, of course, seeing the loss of the naira, seeing the CBN spending 7.6 billion, seeing the crude oil theft, seeing all that is going on, what does the federal government decide to do to address this issue? They formed a committee. Yes, guys, I'm not kidding. They formed a committee. So President Buhari inaugurated a committee on the national economy. Let me read this for you guys. He says the president has inaugurated a presidential committee on the national economy. The committee is to bring together all policymakers responsible for the economy against the backdrop of COVID, complications from the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and the decline in the oil production. Who is in this committee? Well, you have the president, you have the vice president, you have Dr. Kadi Fayemi, the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, you have the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, you have the Budget and Planning Minister, Otumba Niyi Adebayo, Minister of Industry. You also have Chief Timi Silva, the Minister of State for Petroleum. You also have the Secretary of the Government, Boss Mustafa. You have the Chief of Staff of the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, the Governor of the Central Bank, and Dr. Mohamed Sagagi, the Vice Chairman of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council. And we then have the Chief Economic Advisor to the President, Dr. Doyin Salami. He's also going to be the Secretary of the committee. So these guys are going to sit and are going to advise the President on how to on how to maybe fix the Nigerian economy, right? But guys, if you've listened to me for the last 10 minutes, what do you think is a fix? We've heard about crude oil theft. Because Nigeria is losing crude oil, Nigeria does not get money, forex, into the economy. Because there's no forex coming to the economy, the central bank has got to defend the economy with 7.6 billion. Because the central bank is defending the economy with 7.6 billion, the Nigerian government is subsidizing imports and killing jobs. The simple fix is to go fix your oil pipe. Go fix your oil pipelines, put monitoring systems at the port, and establish how much exactly is being exported out of Nigeria. Perhaps if you did that, the revenues of the government will then go up. Then the central bank would have more money and would not have to defend the currency with scarce foreign reserves. Then probably the SMEs will then have a breather and we can start to see interest rates in the economy come down. There's something called debt by committee, where if you don't want to solve a problem, you create a committee. This is a debt by committee. You don't create a committee to fix the economy. The economy does not need committees. The economy needs action. It needs people that will say, this is the problem and we're going to fix it. I'm not sure what these guys are going to talk about. The secretary of the government and all that. We all know what the problem is. Inflation, crude oil theft, revenues, excessive borrowing, spending that is wasteful. You don't need a committee to do this. You need a committee to implement, probably. But I'm not going to tell you what's going on. So, I mean, it's those three stories sort of interlinked themselves and they tell the story. Again, I have to go back to this theme I always hate again. It tells you how decision making is happening at the very, very top of the food chain in Nigeria. If we can't fix crude oil theft, there's really nothing to talk about in any committee. I don't see any security personnel guys in this committee, right? I don't see any guys from the private sector in this committee. Nigeria's top crude oil, Nigeria's top exports now are non-oil, right? The oil sector is negative GDP growth. Where is the private sector in this? Where are the states and all that in this? So I don't know. I think it's a dot for me. I think someone wants to show that they are working. Oh, we formed a committee and we're discussing. But I think Nigerians need much, much more than a committee. That's my show, guys. And I don't see any hands up to comment. So we're just gonna shut it down and wish you guys the very best in your Monday. So go get that money, guys. You have 1 week. I wish you guys the very best. See you guys tomorrow. You all take care and bye.